channels coming in through here natively on decoding side, and then your maximum output here between all of that is your 30.2, as it says down there below. Because that's the great thing about all of these up mixers, right? Is that there's a format that you kind of have a preference towards. I know that there's especially a lot of people who are using music up mixers tend to gravitate towards DTS Neural X or Automatic. Which I'm technically kind of tend to be the same way when I'm doing up mixing for music. And it's, gives you all of the flavors and the absolute most that you can get from those different audio codec stylings. And so, that paired with Storm XT is a pretty phenomenal experience no matter what you like. And there's different use cases for everything, right? Like, I'd say Automatic. I do use some Neural X and some Dolby here and there on music side. Automatic tends to be one of my preferences there, just because for music it's a little bit.
I'm not impressed.
When you're going from 2-channel up, but for a while,
it's all right. So they could do a middle center backs around now on the processor.
On my
when
system
it's
here,
upgraded,
just because I preferred it and even taking in regular Atmos,
whatever,
putting it through Neural X. So there's a lot of different options that you can do, and that's really the biggest thing here, because
I'm not a big fan of DTSX,
and that's valid. So what your preference is and what you like and enjoy has a lot to do with how you might use a system. So this is done with the idea in mind to be as inclusive as possible to everybody who has their own tastes and preferences. Nothing is excluded, nothing's left out. It's taking our adaptability to the next level.
Sure. And in this case, Matthew, because DTSX Pro is the limitation in here in terms of channel counts and what you can do with it, you guys still have that headroom. So if they do update and add more speakers and go to 32 channels or ultimately 35 channels or anything like that, you guys just need to get recertified in that, but you guys have the capability to work with DTS to be able to continue to upgrade the Storm processor to be able to handle that, right?
Correct. 100%.
I love it. So again, as we talk about various codecs in here, I think this is the last one from a codec perspective. But Oro 3D. So I know you were talking about just a moment ago about Automatic for the up mixer. We were talking about decoding latency, and we were talking about this separately. So linking it into this, but also in terms of just processing speed. With that 2.5 times processing speed for you guys. So as you guys were doing your testing, everything that you guys found was that the audio was always able to come in front of the video, meaning that it was never lagging behind, it was always in front of. So if you needed to tweak it, you could always push it back a little bit rather than trying to delay video or any of those things that often make it harder. Correct?
Yeah, and that's a really big thing. And just like you and I were talking about earlier today, right? There are video devices out there that are insanely fast. I mean, we've tested projectors that have latencies of 10 milliseconds, and your typical Atmos, codec file is going to take you, 80 to 100. So this is really significant in is the time that it actually takes to go through this, improvements to that we're also doing on the HDMI side to help with this with HTTP handshakes. So it's a very very significant step forwards. But it's one of those things that I think the industry as a whole will continue to probably battle with for a while.
I can't get the other laptop
to the new version of this Oro engine
share the screen live, but this is recorded, so you can play it back later to your heart's content.
Integration, earlier. But this is what's really cool. Like I said, I love the fact that you're able to keep it basically in a full digital format all the way through. And now
I'm not thoroughly impressed.
So are you guys seeing more and more?
Yeah, right at the start of this webinar, they show a diagram of speakers in the floor and all around everything.
Kind of the consumer and the integrator thoughts as you start, rolling a few of these ADEC, boards out into the field?
If I want to do a center middle backs around, I'll just do it matrix. One they've not mentioned yet, and I don't know if it's mentioned on their website, what the cost on the upgrade is, because it looks pretty simple to install.
I don't know how significant I'd say it is, but a good percentage of an uptake in larger scale format theaters that are pushing the 30 channel envelope and much higher in some cases.
Crikey, my CB radio can do more channels than that.
Especially as we see more stuff come out that's DCI compliant, like quantum video walls. I think planar video walls are now DCI compliant too. So, we are part of the specification on a good amount of those systems. And it's one of the things that we've been, talking about internally, because we're probably talking about at least one, if not more of these a month. On the design side with the different partners that we have just here, in the North American division. So it's pretty significant as far as an increase goes, in my opinion. But more to come. It's DCI is an interesting realm of getting access to, because it's not, it's not as straightforward as just going out to specifier and saying, I want to have this in my room. You have to go through a whole certification process. Drawings have to be approved. It's definitely a task and an undertaking for the dealers that are, comfortable doing it and capable of doing it. But when it's done right, and it's really significant. So I think we did actually at ISC, part of our demo feature included a small DCI clip as we were partnered with Wisdom and Barco in there. So it's things that you have access to. We're starting to see more and more of it, and trying to work with Dolby to make that, more accessible for people.
No, and that makes sense. And, what I've always loved about, let's say a storm processor in here and the ability to upgrade into stuff and the various products that you guys have, a lot of it is just, how many channels do I need? Do I need analog versus digital? You guys kind of have a solution for each one. So, you guys are building product that can, withstand the rigor of a full DCI integration. But at the same time, one of the things that I love in let's say in my family room system is the fact that I'm able to take, a storm processor and run an AES67, integration with my speakers and my amplifiers. To be able to also use Dirac Art to be able to take my, subprime non-DCI theater, where one side of the wall is 6 feet away from my speakers and the other one's 40 feet, and create that, what sounds really, really solid. And I think that's something to be said with Storm Audio is like, it's not just for DCI integrations, it has that capability, but it's also there to be able to take, your less than prime room, maybe in an open concept or anything like that, and still be able to make that room sound great as if it was in a, fully enclosed room with, proper, sound absorption and the rest.
Yeah, we've done some, I think that we see more and more multi-purpose spaces is what we typically tend to call them nowadays. But we see more and more of those pop up every month. And technology as far as room correction and the approach that we take, some of the things that we offer as far as services to dealers to really help take that to, the nth degree. I think that's it's pretty powerful on this product. And some of the things that we can do with room correction, both in the manual tools that we have, some of the new tools that we have coming, there are additional supplementations to that, as well as the pairing with Dirac Live Active Room Treatment, which is today still only lives on Storm Audio processors, is pretty phenomenal. And some of the different things that we can do. And I mean, we've gone through, from media rooms that, we've worked with dealers and reps and have commented that it's been some of the best experiences that they've ever been through, even compared to a dedicated theater system. And it's also, something that's feasible for upgrade packages. I mean, we went through for a customer and redid a room back in December on the East Coast, a big dedicated theater that was built back in 2004, I believe, was the initial conception date, and they put in a new projector. They updated the processor to a Storm Mark III 32, and that room was actually able, with all of the calibration tools and active room treatment that we have, to hit RP22 level standards on a room that was designed 20 something years before those standards even existed.
No, I think that's phenomenal. And as we look at this, I want to make sure we get some time to hit some questions in here. But I think that is the innovation, the upgradability. It's always been at the core of Storm Audio. Like you said, you can take a processor from 2016 and, through upgrades, be able to add in, ADEC in there now. As you talked about, being able to take a theater that was designed, 20 years ago, or something that's in a mixed room, and really be able to pull those standards in there. And, again, not that this one's specifically in the Dirac, but I know you guys have that deep relationship. So when we talk about innovation, Storm Audio, has that direct relationship, same as we're talking about with the codecs, with companies like Dirac and are actually typically the first testing leg, for a lot of those products. So I think that's always been really, really cool. And one of the reasons why I've always, loved the Storm Audio brand. Obviously the ADEC, brings state-of-the-art decoding. We're talking in there, you now have, Dolby Atmos decoding at 1.8. That again, most processors just aren't going to have. They're still stuck in that 1.6 that's been around since 2020. And being able to upgrade that to 32 channels. I have to admit, I am not at 32 channels in my home yet, but having that capability for people that have larger rooms that just want to be able to have as much control and as much pinpoint accuracy in that audio, I think that's super, super cool and takes full, use of those digital standards. So, looking at worldwide broadcast and streaming capability or compatibility with MPEG-H. So that's another great one that, like we talked about, you can't get in most processors, and also adds, Sony 360 RA compatibility into that as well, based on the MPEG-H, standard. Optimize audio latency, faster codec switching time. We talked about that with, 2.5 times faster. And being able to process and switch, and then also, optimize audio latency with not having, effectively no risk of, the audio ever being behind the video. So it's much easier for that Storm processor to be able to adjust that, in order to make sure that everything is synced up exactly right. So, and then again, still I know when we first started on this, a few years back at CEDIA, it was the CEDIA's first actual demo, of an AE67, theater, not DCI, unfortunately. But now you guys have that capability. And so it's still the only solution in the market to support that full end-to-end digital, AES67 32 channel DCI interface. And again, I think that's just a phenomenal piece for anybody that is building out theaters or has that occasion to have those clients, that are looking for a DCI theater. Here's a great product that allows you to do that.
Absolutely.
And so then, extensions into more use cases. Like we said, we're barely scratching the surface, it sounds like, on what this ADEC board is able to do. And I think that's the real thing where, hey, I'm going to upgrade my system right now. That's great. But what happens 5 years from now? And so I know you guys are thinking diligently about that, and and how to make sure that your investment in a Storm Audio, because it is an investment in a in a piece of gear that is really the heart of your theater, or the heart of your multimedia room, or and so I want to make sure that if I'm going to invest that company's there to be able to support me, whether it's a DCI theater or a high-end soundbar.
Absolutely.
Cool. So I think, that's a lot to go in there. It's, we still got a few minutes on here, and we can always go a few minutes over. But I know we have some questions. There were some questions ahead of time, that had come in. So
Yeah, you want to start with those, and then I've been answering a good amount of them here
in the chat
as they've come up and as I've had the ability to do so. And then, so yeah, we can go start with those and we can go through some of these until we run out of time.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think we were talking a little bit about this, but John Tulio was, asking, he said, we're talking about the ADEC board adding seamless integration for future audio technologies. Does that mean the user won't ever have to upgrade the decoder board again and will benefit from new codecs from only a software upgrade? Can you elaborate on this, please? So I think we covered most of that. And it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matthew, but yes, obviously the board is built with a ton of headroom in there. So as existing codecs get upgraded, you can see that is able to be, handled. And then as new codecs come on there, stormaudio has the capability of being able to add those codecs in by working directly, with those codec platforms and integrating it into Storm, right?
Absolutely.
Sweet. John Tulio again. So again, I think we hit most of these, John, but just want to make sure that we're, kind of succinctly putting it in there. So with access to 35 channels, which we talked about, the current platform, we're saying runs to 32 channels. And, so my understanding in this, Matthew, is that that is a hardware piece to the existing ISP products. So, there is a hardware stop basically at 32 channels, and the ADEC board has the ability to go beyond that with 35. So as right now, 32 would be the limit. And then there'll be some options in the future with new products and other things from there, I guess, correct?
Yeah, so 32 is the pipeline for now. That is the limitation, and we designed the ADEC once again looking forward to the next decade. So the additional channel, rendering possibility that's in there is for future stuff down the line. Should it be appropriate?
Okay. And then let's do one more from John, and then we'll jump into some of the other ones. So regarding the statement about precise spatial positioning of audio objects, how does ADEC differ from APM or any other decoder on the market? So this is kind of what we've been talking about, some of the new differences in there. So do you want to just kind of recap on there, Matthew, what your thoughts are in, positioning APM, as kind of a standard decoder on the market versus what ADEC can do?
Yeah, so the APM had a lot of capabilities that it could do. It was able to decode 24 channels, but it was able to hit more than that. So you had a variety of things that you could do. And this is also going to partially touch on a question that we had in here as well, which was from Klaus. So, there are, first and foremost, we have complete control over the, I think, I lost your camera here, Brett. I think you're still with me, though.
Yeah, I am here.
Okay. So, yeah, you have the ability to go in and, we have the ability to go in and modify all this because we have complete control over all of the both hardware and software that's running on the chip. So part of that and going through to the new formats is including channels that weren't in there before. So there's now a, back center surround, center back height, the other channels that weren't in there before that are now available as part of that. So there are actually new channels that you can utilize as well as fuller configurations and switches. So there is a more precise way that you can go about doing that. I mean, we've seen some channels in the past that had, rear center backs, and now we have the ability to hit those discreetly.
Cool. So Tina was asking on here, so I think we covered a little bit about technical internals on the new ADEC board. So if there's anything you want to, add into that one. But his question kind of came around, obviously, 35 channel decoding, MPEG-H, codec switching times, all the main pieces that we were talking about in there. Is there anything else that switching over to the ADEC board, allows stormaudio to potentially bring to the table in the future?
Well, any inclusion of future upgrades and codec upgrades, because it's not going to be upgraded, past its current point on the old decoder. So as things go on, as Dolby, DTS, IMAX, Oro, all of these other companies and Pigage increase their formats, which I think that we'll start to see that continuously. Evolution chain has been 3 to 5 years now, and it seems like it's gotten a little quicker. Especially with the increases in Dolby, which is, substantial considering, residential Atmos and Atmos itself have only been around for 12 or 13 years now. So, in that time frame, there's been a lot of significant upgrades, and we start to see that more and more prevalently on a shorter turnaround. So, all of those future updates are the benefit of the ADEC. And as far as, further things now, because it's running on all of these latest things and it's an improved implementation of it, because there's things that we've gone through, past just, upgrading from 1.6 to 1.8 on Daha and things of that nature. There's other improvements and things that are easier to do within our control, because we, now have the ability to do all of the management for it ourselves. So, certain things like, the issues with streaming platforms, dialogue issues, stuff like that are not prevalent on ADEC. So you have a big upgrade in actual stability and consistency and the performance functionality of that decoder.
Cool. No, that makes sense there. And then Tino had a couple parts to this question.
Yeah.
So he asked about making use of the up to 35 decoded channels. Obviously, that would be more relevant towards, digital products like the ISP Elite and the Evo. So, we generally covered that. It's going to be capped at 32, as it stands in there now. And then, like you said, otherwise it's capped to whatever you're, if you're running analog, then you're still capped at the kind of analog channels you got, right? So, and then the one that I wasn't sure on there that he asked in there was, could the increased processing power result in increased filter tap resolution, which is currently around 3,000, it sounds like.
It's a very fair question. Current filter tap resolution is 3076 per independent output on the unit. That's totally done separately from our decoding platform. So we have our own DSP section on Elite. It's 4 Shark 4 chips that are running this individually by themselves paired with the DACs. So that is totally separate hardware-wise from the ADEC, so there's no current shift or modification to the DSP processing power. It doesn't, take any of those resources. It doesn't provide any extra to them because it's not the function that the ADEC decoding board is providing for us in this role.
Okay, and then I'm just looking on here. Matthew, while I look up some of these other questions, I want to make sure we get into some of the live questions. I know you answered a bunch of them. Were there any questions that were in there that you want to cover real quick?
Yeah, let's go through a couple of these just as a general thing. So, Marcus asked if the upgrade was available for the Core 16 as well. That's absolutely the case. It's upgradable for any of those units. Any stormaudio unit whatsoever, Mark 1, Core 16, the ISR Fusion 20, doesn't matter what it is. I already mentioned one of them from Klaus. We did have a good question from David here that said, am I interpreting correctly that Mark 1 machines can only be upgraded with the ADEC module if they have first been converted to the Mark 1.5? Short answer is no. You can do an ADEC implementation without. It's not recommended. You won't get the full benefits of the ADEC, and you will still be limited to those 16 channels because the actual surrounding hardware doesn't have the ability to support it. But it is possible, technically speaking. But the way that we do it now is you wouldn't have to do a Mark 1.5 conversion. Your Mark 1.5 upgrade would be part of the ADEC upgrade process. So that one I thought was a good one.
So Ingo asked a question on here, Matthew, that, again, just to clarify in here, he'd asked, will the new Aura Engine 3.1 or 3.10 and Atmos 1.8 also work on the legacy chip, or are they dedicated to ADEC? So my understanding in there would be that it's dedicated to ADEC because it's the upgrade in the boards that are allowing you to be able to get that access, correct?
Correct. It is dedicated to ADEC. The legacy device, our old decoder platform, will not be upgraded to support those. So it will live where it lives currently.
Okay.
David Rousset asked, could we imagine PS5 gaming support with this codec, or is it for music only? I'm assuming that relates to MPEG-H, because Dolby Atmos and DTS:X are already available for codecs on, I think, most modern gaming systems. I'm not sure for the Nintendo platforms, but I know both PlayStation and Xbox allow for them. I don't know. It's a good question. That would be probably a little bit more relevant, geared towards the Microsoft or Sony guys. Being that Sony, already has the 360 RA tie, I could see it coming to the PlayStation platform. It wouldn't surprise me. I think the big limitation would be what can receive it on down end, right? So, for a company like Sony or Microsoft, there's got to be enough of a use case for them to justify that kind of an inclusion. So, in the future, possibly, I would be surprised if it's something that we see, in the very near future. But to be seen.
I got another one on here that I think is good, Matthew. Kind of talks to, we talk about DCI and we talk about 32 channels, and Brian Slocum was asking on here, does this help with a 7.1.4 system? So, something more along the lines of what most of us have. Mainly used for Dolby Atmos, for music and movies, aside from the codec switching speed, which is obviously a cool piece in there. But this is where you were talking about, let's say with Dolby Atmos, getting that upgrade from 1.6 to 1.8 is where you're hearing a difference that wouldn't matter how many channels you have. You're just saying that there's more data and more stuff coming into it, right?
I would say, Brian, absolutely. Specifically here at home, my theater system, my main room downstairs is a 746. So I have just the 7 base layer surrounds. I do have one, more pair of overheads than you do, but I have top front, top mid, and top rear, and those top middles are at that layer, not an object layer. Where you can have an object, coming out of there, but I think that you would still see an increase in engagement, involvement, and immersion.
Cool. And then slightly unrelated to this one, but I'm going to say Oleg, so I apologize. I don't want to mess with the whole name on there. Do you have a step-by-step video tutorial for how to set up direct art for the ISR Fusion 20? So I know you've built a lot of different videos, Matthew. I don't know the answer to that, but figured you might be able to answer it.
Yeah, so we have, we have our own art guides that we put out there. There will be some more that are coming in the near future. There is really no main variance other than how you're going to set the amplification channels up on the ISR Fusion. But other than that standpoint, the entire process design-wise and calibration-wise is the same as it would be on a Core or an Elite. So, any of the validation or documentation that we have on there is still valid for the Fusion. There's also, to shout out some other good resources. Eric Wesley from ABS Forums did a review of an ISR Fusion 20 earlier this year that's available on the ABS Forum webpage. And I think we have links to that on our website as well. If you would like to access them there, because it's probably a pretty quick and easy way to grab it rather than trying to sort through a bunch of ABS stuff. But he goes through and talks about the Dirac Live active room treatment that we did. I was actually on site with him when we did that. It was a tremendous, response for the performance that he has. If you're looking for something a little bit more in depth, Sonny Parker of AV Nirvana also recently published a 114-page, very detailed article review with lots of photos of his discovery with active room treatment and Dirac Live and all the things that he's done and the settings that he's played with, which is a phenomenal resource. It's probably one of the most in-depth things that's written out there at the moment. So yeah, lots of things like that. You can reach out to us on our website. We can point you in the direction of that material. You can also, talk to whoever your local dealer is, because calibration services is something that we offer. Not to say that other people can't learn Dirac art, but we consider ourselves one of the foremost experts in it because we use it constantly. So out of the few of us that do calibrations, Chris and Thibaut, myself and Sebastian, for the team, there's a lot of resources there that we can put to good use for you. And that's why we offer it as a service, right? Because we're forced to know the tool better than anyone else, purely because we have to be testing it and modifying it constantly. So,
and that's why Matthew is on my speed dial. So it looks like questions are slowing down here a bit. And we're just running about 8 minutes over time here. So we appreciate everybody that's been hanging on to this. I know this was kind of cool for me because I'm used to doing things like this as a manufacturer. So being able to do this kind of as a consumer, as an owner, is great. And then I've been busy on my side. My day job is working at ProSource. So some of you guys may know me from there as well, where we're working on, again, training and education platforms. For me, I'm a little bit behind on updating my ADEC, but I can't wait to get it in there, hear those differences in the Dolby Atmos and the 1.8, probably try some of the new codecs, as Matthew was saying, that I haven't been able to try before, like MPEG-H, and Sony 360RA. You guys, thank you everybody for your time. Do you see anything else in there, Matt, that we need to answer on here? I know there are a couple questions about new products and things like that. I don't have any information on that. That's not within my wheelhouse. I was just kind of checking out some of this stuff and asking questions, but anything else that we want to cover really quick before we go, Matt?
I don't believe so. Anybody who we didn't get to here on, we will try to still get back to your questions. I believe this record should stay valid once we end the webinar. If there's something else that, comes up that, you either didn't get answered by us or as an afterthought or anything like that, please don't hesitate to reach out to us either through the website or to our email address. My email is matthew.trinklein, which I know is a little difficult for some, TRINKLEIN, at gmail.com, or not Gmail, goodness, at stormaudio.com. Feel free to reach out to us. You can also reach out to us via our service desk or via HubSpot or a request through our website. All channels of contact are open. So we're a pretty transparent company. And like to honor that as much as possible and answer whatever we can. So by all means, please reach out if you have anything else.
Cool. Well, very cool. I've always found Matthew to be great, as well as the whole team over at Storm Audio, which is why I was more than happy to kind of jump on and do this with them. For myself, I don't give out my information on this one, I guess, since I don't work there. But you can always check out some of my content on YouTube at factnatics.com or Factnatics on YouTube. So that's FAQ for FAQ, Natics. And definitely check some stuff out. I will be putting up probably further later on in the summer, a review on my Mark III, as well as the ADEC board. As well as showing how it gets put together in a more, media room kind of open space, setup so that you guys can see exactly, the importance of having technology like Dirac art. So appreciate the time for everybody. Matthew, appreciate the time as always. Great information in there. You were always a fountain for that. And we will catch everybody else again later on. Thanks, everybody.